Welcome to the second talk of 2022, the Ottawa Sailing Community Speaker Series. My name is Park Davis and I'm going to be your MC tonight. As a recap from last week, we have 12 talks. There's 11 more, including tonight's, one every Wednesday from now until the 6th of April. And the full listing of the talks, of course, you can get that from the NSC website. So talking about introductions, there's three of us that work together to put on all of these talks. The first person on the list is Tony Wright. He does all the web work to publicize the talks. And he's also become our Zoom master, learning far more than he ever wanted to about Zoom. And unfortunately, I guess because the Eventbrite system has its own idiosyncrasies, he's going to have to learn a lot about it too. But he vows he's going to master it. So Stephen Kidd works with scheduling and finding speakers, and behind the scenes working with Tony each Wednesday evening. And by the way, please feel free to make Stephen's work a little bit easier. If you'd like to speak, or if you know someone who has a story or an experience to share with us all, please contact any one of us and we'll see if we can deal with that. And we still have one more opening on March 16th. So if any of you out there has a neat story to tell, please come forward. Don't be bashful. Come and tell us about it. And me, I'm the third part of the group. I'm taking care of the MC duties. Now, the presentation tonight is by Tony Wright. He's going to be coming out from behind the curtains, where he does all the Zoom and Eventbrite logistics, to speak about his family's experience flotilla sailing in the Mediterranean. Tony's going to explain why they enjoy holidays in flotillas and what to look for before you go and what to expect once you get there. Tony and Margaret are longtime NSC members, and they've taken many flotilla and bareboat charters from the 1980s on in various places like Greece, Croatia, Turkey, Florida, the BVIs, and in Thailand. So Tony, I'm going to turn things over to you now and let you proceed with your presentation.
Thanks very much, Park. Thanks very much indeed, and thanks to everybody for showing up so in such a timely way. I do apologize for the mess up about the US dollar donation thing. And just to reiterate, the Eventbrite booking for next week was actually opened a couple of days ago. And so if you wanted to, if you're saying, well, I really wanted to donate to the Legacy Fund, you can do that just by signing up for the donation part for next week. But without further ado, I'd like to get into tonight's presentation. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and hope that that works properly. And Stephen will let me know if it doesn't. All right, so I'm going to talk about some flotilla holidays that we've had. I'm going to have slides about Croatia and Turkey in particular, but we started our first flotilla in Greece quite a number of years ago, and we came across flotillas actually while we were on holiday in England, and we went to the boat show in London, and came across a booth where somebody was advertising flotillas, and we kind of got captivated by the whole idea and ended up going to the Ionian for our first flotilla. We enjoyed that so much we went back again to Greece, but I want to talk about that one. I'll mention it a couple of times as we go through, but since that was some time ago, the ones we did in Croatia and Turkey are a bit more recent, but obviously not in the last few years because that's been a little difficult for everyone to travel. So first of all, I want to mention flotilla in Croatia. I'm sure some of you will recognize this if you've been to Dubrovnik. This was a Dubrovnik flotilla that we were on. And another one here in Turkey. And this is out of Göcek in Turkey. So what appeals to us about flotillas? Well, first of all, I like the idea of being the captain of my own boat. with just family or friends on board. I know a lot of people like to join other types of charters or flotillas where you get on board and you really get to know other people intimately on board. But we like the idea of meeting people when we get to a destination, and you can be very social there. But when we just have the family or friends on board, then during the day we're by ourselves, and obviously when we sleep at night. But then during the day we can rendezvous with other people, but particularly in the evenings, and we get together, and when we see them at breakfast in the morning. The flotilla leader is someone who takes care of the itinerary and he's the safety end of the fleet and any repairs, although some companies actually have not just a flotilla leader, but they have a hostess who takes care of all the social events and so on. And they have a technician who at one point was called an engineer, but I think they refer to them as technicians nowadays because they're the guys who carry a few spare parts on board the lead boat, and they fix things while you're underway or when you get to your destination. The nature of a flotilla is you take most of your meals ashore. You're not provisioning the boat for long periods. You may have a bit of breakfast stuff on board. You'll always have your lunches because you want to be having your lunches while you're underway, but you normally stop and have a place to stop and swim, and the flotilla leader will recommend places you can do that for lunch. And then they meet you when you get to the other end, and sometimes meals are arranged. Sometimes you just go off on your own to a restaurant. A couple of times we stepped off the boat and sat down immediately at a table on the dock. It's a wonderful thing when you're in the Mediterranean. So we like the idea of having that measure of independence, but we've got the security of knowing that we've got experienced people who are guiding us through this whole experience. And we don't have to do a lot of advanced planning. When we were preparing to go to Thailand, I spent 2 or 3 months researching the area. We were chartering the boat, so I really wanted to get to know the waters, where it was safe to go, what to expect from the weather, all that kind of thing. With a flotilla, you can leave most of that thinking to the fleet captain, the lead skipper. So you have many choices as to where you can go in the Mediterranean, but if you want to start off easy, there are a few places that are recommended. The Ionian was where we started, and it continues to be a recommended place to go, and I'll tell you why. You also will need to choose when to go. You have to recognize that obviously the warmest weather, hottest weather in the Mediterranean is going to be in July and August. It also happens to be when lots of families are on vacation. It's when the Italians really set sail and they crowd out a lot of other people when they go sailing. So if you can go just slightly either end of that and miss the school holiday period for Europeans, you can still have some really nice weather and some nice wind, but avoid the crowding. So just a little bit in the shoulder season is our preferred time to go. There are many sizes and kinds of boats available. What you'll see in these pictures are mostly monohulls, but there are some large ones, some smaller ones, and I think there are some flotilla companies may even offer catamarans. Not entirely sure on that. We've only ever gone with monohulls. There are a number of companies. We've chose to go to Greece with a Greek-based company that organized both charters and flotillas. We arranged it through a UK travel agency, but more recently we decided to stick with more of an international company. Sunsail is one of them. One of the things I'll talk about a little bit is how to get there. When you choose your boat, you'll find that if you choose an older boat, you can get a much better price. But of course, your boat may be a little bit well worn by the time you get to use it. If you want a newer kind of boat on a larger boat, you'll pay more. One of the interesting things we found was that if we booked our flotilla through the UK, there were often things included which were extras if you booked from here directly or via the US. So that's one thing to look at, is where exactly, who do you want to book with? If you're going to book a UK-based company, it wouldn't be unusual to be paying per passenger on the boat, and they will also arrange the flights from some airport in the UK. So if you get to the UK, from there, you've got everything arranged for you. If you book from the US, you're probably arranging everything for yourself until you get to your boat. And the boat itself, you're paying one price for however many people you are on board. So there's many choices, many prices. The Google is a wonderful mechanism right now to find all those kinds of things. What do you get? So I'll give you an example of what you get if you go with Sunsail. And you get your, now we'll use the term yacht here because that's the term that Sunsail uses. And it's a term that's used a lot in the UK. They don't refer to sailboats so much. They like to speak about yachts, no matter what size it is. So a bit of a fancy term, I know, for what we use. So here's how they describe it. You get your boat, you get the lead crew, a skipper, a host, and a technician. You get one tank of yacht fuel, so they'll fill it up. And if you don't run out of fuel by the time you get back, you don't get charged anymore. They'll give you cooking gas. Now that may be propane, it may be something else they use in Europe. You'll get one full tank of water. Now, again, it's one of the things it's useful to check to see what size tankage you get on a boat, because if you're sailing in the islands, the Greek islands and so on, you may find there are limited opportunities to refill the water tank. And when you do, you'll be charged. And they'll be vigilant to make sure you don't waste water, because water is a precious commodity there. One of the really nice things here, and it's not a small thing, is a guaranteed mooring at each stopover. So you do happen to go in a busy time. By sailing in a flotilla, you know you're going to be able to moor when you get to a particular destination, because the flotilla company has arranged that, and they'll be there to guide you in, help you tie up at the dock. If you're chartering, going on your own, again, you're going to be a bit on your own to see if you can actually get into a particular place. They also supply a dinghy and outboard, and the outboard is a nice thing to have, not so much because you get an outboard, but because it kind of guarantees you get a dinghy that's big enough to put an outboard on it. One of the flotillas we had a boat that was given the description was, it was an inflatable dinghy, but it really, when we looked for it, when we got to the boat, couldn't see one, and they opened up the cockpit locker, and there was what I would consider to be more of a bath toy in the cockpit locker, and that's not particularly useful if you really want to go any distance in it. In fact, when I blew it up and stepped into it, I'd forgotten it was a bath toy, and first thing I did, of course, was went straight in the water. They say you've got all sailing, navigation, and safety equipment on board. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's a good idea to bring some of your own stuff that you know you can rely on. And I said we'll talk about life jackets in a minute. Nowadays, it's a good idea to install some kind of navigation software on an iPad or a tablet of some kind with an attached, either a GPS capability, or you can attach other GPSs connected by Bluetooth or whatever to drive the navigation software, because you may find that what you get on your boat is a bit more basic than you expected. There's a fully equipped galley and kitchen. Again, sometimes they stretch the definition of those things a little bit. They give you clean linen, including bath and tea towels. Well, definition of a European bath towel is not quite what you might expect from North America. So I would recommend you take some beach towels with you. They will give you snorkeling fins, and some companies will give you masks and snorkels as well. But again, that's something we would always take with us. They give you your first morning's breakfast, and then you're on your own to buy some breakfasts after that. They will have some kind of party, and you can see some boats here on a beach, and they often have this punch party on a beach, and they might have a little fire. They'll offer some punch and some nibblies, and it's a good way as a sort of a social get to know people very early on in the flotilla. And one of the things that happens at the end of the week, they call it a regatta. I would call it a very informal fun race that happens at the end of each. Wasn't expecting that the first flotilla we went on, but it's amazing how serious some people get about joining in that kind of race. But it is always fun. So I want to introduce you to our first destination here, which was Dubrovnik. We started and ended our flotilla in Dubrovnik. We went for 2 weeks. And what you can see here is Dubrovnik without a lot of crowding. And that's because this picture was taken before Game of Thrones happened and the crowds descended upon Dubrovnik. So it was a very nice time to go, and I recommend you find out if you can get in there when it's not too crowded. Just leave you with a few photos here of the harbour. This is the view that we had of Dubrovnik when we had landed at the airport and we were taking the bus in towards our boats where we were due to pick it up. We did actually come back a little bit later, and right on the streets of Dubrovnik there was a boat kind of music. Here you see some more streets of Dubrovnik itself. You down on the harbour, and looking back out over the water. Now, we were fully expecting our marina, because as described in the Sunsail brochure, it said that we would be getting our boats in the Dubrovnik marina. It has a particular name, I forget the name now. But, you know, we did our research, we looked it all up, and there were very nice facilities. There was a supermarket at the marina, there was a cash machine there. So we planned to get our cash at that marina. But the bus started moving outside of Dubrovnik and going down the coast of it. And so we asked a question as to where exactly we were going. And we were going to, I think it was a village that was on the water that looked very much like this. And our boats were all tied up at a little dock, where unfortunately there was no cash machine. And that's a problem in Croatia. And one of the things that happens is when you go to Croatia, you need cash. Credit cards are accepted at major restaurants. If you're going out to eat in Dubrovnik and other major places, no problems. You can use credit cards. But if you're going to buy stuff at a market and you want to buy some provisions at a market for some breakfasts and lunches and things like that, then you need cash for that. But also, many of the smaller family-run restaurants need cash, and you need it for mooring fees at marina. They use kuna, not euros, until 2023 anyway, so make sure you get some cash whenever you find an ATM. We found ourselves sort of planning our next ATM visit carefully, because eating out of Croatia is not as cheap as it is in Greece. Find that costs are comparable to what they are in Canada. So the first thing that happens is a skipper's briefing. So you want to get onto your boat, and they'll hopefully you get onto your boat fairly quickly. There's always a turnaround day for a flotilla. So it'll be in the afternoon when you can put your bags on the boat. Sometimes they just sort of stack your bags on the dockside while your boat's being cleaned and ready for you. But then once you get on board the boat, they will organize an onboard briefing. The lead skipper, maybe the technician, will come on board and show you how all the boat systems worked. In Croatia, in this particular occasion, they actually brought a couple of skippers on board our boat to show them all at the same time, because the boats are all fairly similar. So let's show you how this all works. So they went through the electrical panel, what all the breakers we needed to understand, how to operate the radio, how to operate the windlass, and when to turn things on and off. Usually the first thing they'll tell you is only run the fridge while you're either plugged in at the dock or while the engine's running. But all other times they want the fridge turned off. So that means you can't keep an awful lot of stuff in the fridge. The head is always an important thing to know how to operate. And the first thing that they will tell you is nothing goes into the head that didn't come out of your body. So in other words, no paper, nothing else will go in there, because nobody wants to deal with unclogging. And they tell you that there'll be a penalty if the skipper or the technician have to go in and unblock it themselves. I think they really mean you have to buy them a beer or so, but you really don't want that. And one of the things they will explain to you as to how to empty the holding tank. You do that out in a channel. Usually, there are some exceptions, but I always recommend that you clean that out as often as you can while you're out in the channel, and flush plenty of water through it. It'll make the boat smell a lot sweeter. Check the condition of the batteries. We found on one of the boats, and that was actually in Turkey, I noticed the batteries were charging at around 10.5 volts. And that didn't seem right to me. When I pointed it out to the skipper, he said to me, "Oh, well, the batteries have been run down. They will charge up pretty soon." But I know that a battery needs to charge at around 14.5 volts. So that said to me there was something wrong either with the charger or with the battery. And looking around, I found a battery. They were gel batteries. And there was like a domed kind of swelling on the top of a battery, which was quite hot. And so one of the first things we did was get that fixed. A lot of other things to check. I've made a list here. I found turning blocks that were worn out. So when you tried to actually do some roller furling, the line wouldn't run through the block. We set sail without checking whether or not the sail would actually hoist. You get out of the water and you go to hoist the sail and it won't go. So it's good to check as many things as you can. Go and check the life jackets, and sometimes it's a good idea to actually put them on before you leave the dock. Just checking that they're there might not be good enough. Here's my family. We actually got out in the water. It doesn't look too bad here, but there was some, as we were heading towards some much bigger swells as we were heading towards a headland. So I got everybody to put the life jackets on. It was at that point we found that what looked like self-inflating life jackets were not actually self-inflating. So we did that thing they always show you in the safety briefing on a plane, which is you use that little tube to inflate it. So we all had to sort of self-inflate. I figured it was a good idea to inflate them now rather than wait until somebody fell in the water. And you'll notice we even used a tether here for Margaret. Yeah, a little close up there of those tubes you can use to inflate them. Anyway, one of the things that will happen once you've done all your briefing and you've got underway, the lead skipper and the host and the technician are on the lead boat, and they're set off. You always recognize them by all the flags they have on the back. So when you see one of these things going around, it's probably a lead skipper from a flotilla. And they make sure everybody departs okay, and then they motor at full speed to the destination to make sure that they've got the space on the dock for everyone to arrive. It can be quite a social thing. This was a very nice boat that came up to say hi to us, and I hadn't really suspected what was going on. They even distracted us with a bathing beauty on the front of the boat. Next thing I knew, I had a bucket of water thrown all over me. So you have to watch out for these guys, the pirates on the seas. Destinations in Croatia. If you haven't been there, it's a beautiful place to go. Almost everywhere is very, very scenic. Here's a couple of boats from the Flotilla and other boats that are on charter that are coming here. Now, one of the rituals of Flotilla is the morning briefing. They generally set this up at a coffee shop that's on the dock, where you can have your morning coffee and you get your chart briefing at the same time. They give you the weather forecast, they give you the destination, explain where you can stop and swim along the way, what you need to watch out for, where the hazards are, where you can provision. The host or hostess will help you with restaurant planning for the evening, where to shop before you go, where you can shop once you get there, all those great things. And some of these briefings are pretty lighthearted. He may be saying right now where he's got his finger pointing. I distinctly remember one skipper saying, "You sail on the white bits, you park on the blue bits, and you drink on the other bits." And there's probably as much as you really need to know for some of the places you're going to be sailing. I can see John Lund's raising his hand. I hope you're not having trouble, John, but maybe Stephen, you can chat with John, and we'll be answering questions at the end there.
Yep, already done.
All right, thanks. All right, so here we are after the morning briefing, where people are enjoying a little bit of a lazy morning. As you can see, many mornings there were quite calm. The wind would tend to pick up a little bit later in the morning, and you'd have some lovely afternoon sailing. So it made for a very, very pleasant, relaxing holiday. You might spot a boat there that has Satisfaction on the back. That was our boat, and obviously one of our towels there. If you look very carefully through the trees, somebody might spot a Canadian flag flying as a pennant on that particular boat. We'll have a close-up of that a little bit later. Now, I mentioned social events. So this is everybody got on board the back of one of the larger boats at the next destination. We found a great get together. We got to know people from all different countries. This is the technician. He's cooking up some snacks and stuff for everyone. And this one, this evening, had something I hadn't encountered before. We had a cocktail competition, and each boat was challenged to come up with its very own cocktail. As you can see, they've used whatever containers they had and mixed stuff together, and they had to explain what that cocktail was all about and what it was. And I think some people made poems, some made songs. It was really funny. Now, a few photos here. We were on Flotilla here. When you've sailed around from Dubrovnik, one of the most beautiful islands is Flotilla. And it's a place where you can go to some nice bars, have some lovely walks through historic alleyways. Pretty beautiful place to go. There's a South African family that was a bit of the life and soul of many parties. While we were underway in Croatia, there wasn't much wind. We were sailing along a channel, and as we were motoring along there a little bit, we had some dolphins come alongside. And as they were swimming around, my daughter said, "Could we stop the boat and go swimming with the dolphins?" Well, Margaret thought that was a bad idea, but I thought it was a great idea, so off they went. And Naomi is saying here that one of them came up underneath her and turned over and looked at her. It was one of the most amazing things she had seen. And here we are at another beautiful little harbour. And here's Satisfaction flying not only the Canadian flag, you can see the NSC Virgie as well. Now, we were there for 2 weeks, but it never quite seems long enough. And pretty soon, the next thing you're at is the farewell dinner. Now, that's where they hand out little souvenir booklets telling you what it is you've been doing, how far you've sailed, that kind of thing, but also maybe some award ceremonies for the most original sailing techniques, but also the winner of the fun race. Now, next we're going to go off to Turkey. Change of music. So this is an amazing music's too loud there. Turn that down a bit. So Turkey, we flew in here to the Bodrum airport. Oh no, sorry, Dalaman airport. We flew into Dalaman from here. We were going to be sailing the bay of Fethiye, the Gulf of Fethiye. Now, your choices of getting to Turkey, I mean, you can fly, if you can find a way to fly direct, that's great. But you'll find that Air Canada will fly maybe into Istanbul, but it won't fly to Dalaman Airport. So we fly via the UK, and then we could take EasyJet or an airline a bit like that to get directly into We like to arrive at the destination early so that we can deal with any travel delays, any problems with luggage maybe arriving a little bit late, but also that we can get onto the boat as early as possible so we can check it out. So, cash machines. I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Should have turned this music up. Anyway, you'll find that if you look for cash machines, there's quite a confusing array when you arrive in a country like Croatia or Turkey. I got very confused. I had decided to get cash at the airport, having made my mistake earlier in Croatia. I'm not getting it at the airport, and I was much more effective these cash. Tucked in my card, never to get it back. Other people have advised that we should have a 4-digit PIN and tell the bank to go. Go-check was a very, very busy harbour there. Sunsail had quite the peak. After recent developments in Turkey, you'll find that Sunsail no longer operates there. And if you want to go to Turkey, you're going to have to use more local companies. But they still offer flotillas, and still a couple of other companies are offering. All right, so this is a goulet. And this is another way to sail around. You have the goulet is operated by a professional crew, and you go along as passengers. And they'll let you sail a little bit as well. I'll show you a little bit of that, but you'll often see them motoring like this rather than sailing. But they are very well equipped on board. They have they do braziers to cook food on board, and it's quite popular. The only trouble is if you end up anchored near one, you might find there's quite a party going on board with lots of loud music and people screaming as they jump off the sides. So we prefer a little bit more peace and quiet, so we try not to get too close to one of these. So this is a place with pontoons. Now, one of the things that you find is if you've got a restaurant here, this probably belongs to the restaurant or the boardwalk here. So as long as you eat at the restaurant, they're not going to charge you for tying up overnight. So this is how the flotilla companies will try and organize that. It was the same thing often in Croatia. You would be paying to dock at city docks, but if you went to a restaurant, as long as you ate in the restaurant, there was no charge for tying up overnight. So when you see those tables there, that's often where you'll have your morning briefing before you set off in the morning. This was a little bakery just up the path from the restaurant where fresh bread was being baked every morning. We could go up there and buy a couple of those to take with us on our sail. Now the music may come back because I'll just sort of skip through a few slides if that happens. Right, so here what I want to do is just to give you an overview. We were sailing over here to Fethiye itself, which is a very, very interesting historic town, and I'll show you a couple of reasons why. But here you got an overview of the harbour, and when you're coming into a harbour like this, you need to prepare for docking stern to. Mediterranean mooring, it's something that in Greece, what you will generally do is drop an anchor from the bow and then back in towards the dock. Here it works a little differently. You back in towards the dock and pass stern lines to a dockhand. Usually if you're in a flotilla, that's going to be your lead skipper and maybe someone else, but he might always have somebody there from the marina or the city dock to help him. And but you're going to be picking up what's called a lazy line or a slime line that is tied to the dock, and then you will be, the dockhand will lift it up out of the water, and you can put a boat hook around it and lift it up onto your boat and then walk it forward to the bow. And that's to save you actually dropping an anchor, and it saves anchors getting fouled. It's a very interesting technique, something you need to learn how to master. And I just wanted to share a YouTube video with you quickly. Stephen, I tried to cut off the front bit here, but when I embedded into Keynote here, it wouldn't let me do that. So anyway, so let me just see if I can, as I start this, you'll You'll never want to back in this fast yourself, but it's very interesting to see the technique of this guy doing this. Let's see if I can move this forward a bit. Here.
Here we've got a yacht. I think this is about a 42, 44-foot yacht, and she's backing up into the marina, ready to dock stern to into the marina with lazy lines. Now, you can see by the water there, and if you saw the water just out in the marina before, it was blowing about 15 to 20 knots. So there was a decent breeze running. It's coming from what is pretty much the top of the screen now. Now, what I wanted to note is the positioning of this boat. See how much closer he is to the top of the screen before he makes his turn, so that he can allow for the turn and for the breeze pushing him around. Now, he is going pretty fast here because he needs to, otherwise the bow will blow around. So I'm not saying go this fast when you're doing it, but it's definitely a good one. You see he comes in, he's in neutral now, slipping into the berth. Very nicely done, by the way. A little bit close on the port side, but you got to be close somewhere. And now he's going to hit forward. There's the forward thrust to stop the boat. And you'll see he's gone to neutral. He's about to leave the controls. He's gone to neutral. Now, right now, the boat's just hovering. And because it's in between these two, it's not really going anywhere. Now, in this case, you saw a guy just jump in off the boat on its starboard side with the lazy line. This isn't how it would happen if you're docking your own boat. These guys are obviously, they do this every day, and they're just moving boats around. So he jumped over to make that really easy. Usually you would have someone on the dock who would lift up the line, you'd hook it with the boat hook.
So I'm going to stop that there. I have to tell you, I've never come into a dock that fast, and I doubt other than professionals, not many people would. What is important to note is how many bumpers you need out, and one of the things that I found in all three places, Greece, Croatia, Turkey, is you can never have enough bumpers to protect yourself from how people sort of jam themselves into what seems to be an impassable space. I do recommend, so where I found this on YouTube, you can see that is called 45 degrees sailing. They actually have an excellent tutorial that's really worth watching for how to dock stern to in Croatia, and the same thing works in Turkey. So I'm going to move on instead now to the next slide, which is, I want to show you the market that we found in Fethiye, which was quite amazing. You've never seen quite so many fresh vegetables in your life. This is a temporary market they set up once a week. It was a great place to go shop. And going for a stroll along the dock side. Here's where you'll see all those gulets. I mentioned before that Fethiye is a very interesting place, and here's the reason why. There are tombs that are carved into the rock face of the local hills, and it turns out these go back thousands of years. We enjoy going to visit the history of places we're visiting, and that's where the host or the hostess can really help you with plans to do this. We were the only people in the flotilla that we know that went to look at these places. Not quite sure why. This is actually called the tomb of Amyntas. It was built by the Lycians in 350 BC. At the time, this was in the Greek city of Telmessus, but now, of course, it's part of Fethiye, Turkey. And the tombs were not just on the rock faces, you also find them in the middle of the road. So back out on the water, this is a gulet that actually has its sails up. It's a bit of a rare sight, so I thought I'd better take a picture. And here's our fleet moored up for the evening. That boat's not using a lazy line, but you can see where we might be having our morning briefing. A little shot of the boarding planks that we use to get ashore when we're moored up stern to. And here's a fleet of a flotilla fleet that is having their end of flotilla race. Now, I've mentioned that we like to, when we go, we've generally gone for 2-week flotillas. It's kind of a nice way to really get to know the place. Once the skipper knows what you're capable of in handling the boat, then they quickly ease up on shepherding you around and let you go off and do a bit of your own exploring. And generally, when you go on a 2-week flotilla, the middle weekend is sort of a handover weekend. The fleet generally returns to the home base on a Friday evening. You'd leave your boat on a Saturday morning, and then the new occupants of the boat will arrive in the afternoon and be on board by Saturday night. They get their briefings and they'll have a very short sail on a Sunday. So if you're on a 2-week flotilla, you're generally going to leave the group on a Friday and go to your own destinations on Friday and Saturday night, and then join up with the flotilla again on the Sunday night when they've reached that next destination. We kind of enjoy that little break from being with everyone, but then seeing a whole new group of people and maybe some people that are there for the second week when we rejoin the flotilla. So this was in Go Check as we're re-entering the harbour after all those sort of idyllic sites. Now we're back into the busy part. You'll see there's a little tent on the a little bit to the right, marquee tent. That's the Sunsail docks and where we're going to be headed to. Again, there's the farewell dinner and celebrations. We find that the nice thing is there's always families and couples from different countries. Obviously there'll be a number of Brits there, because flotillas are very popular from there, but we've been with Germans, Dutch, Italians, French, as I said, South Africans. Interestingly, I don't think we've ever come across any other Canadians on a flotilla. That was to our advantage once we have not just the end of regatta or end of flotilla regatta or race, but sometimes they'll have some fun races. And one we had in Greece was an upside down dinghy race. So they figured this would be, absolute chaos as people tried to figure out what to do with the oars. But my daughter and I said, well, this looks a bit like a canoe to us. So we did a standard canoe paddle, and I think we lapped the competition, but I think we got penalized for cheating for doing that. So I don't know. I don't think we actually won that race officially. So here we are waiting. We actually left the flotilla here in Go Check, and we rented a car and we drove all the way from the south of Turkey up the west coast, past some very interesting historic places, and all the way into Istanbul, where we spent a few days and explored Istanbul. It was a great thing to do. So one question that you're bound to have is, can you be a skipper of a flotilla? And one of the requirements now in Greece, in Croatia, in Turkey, is that you will require to have some kind of certificate of competence. When I first did this, I had a certificate of competence from Germany. So I had taken my courses in Germany while I lived there, and I had an official document to be able to sail and to handle a powerboat. That was the basic qualification that they were looking for at the time, and they issued me a British equivalent to that, so that I could carry that and show it in English to the Greek authorities. I don't know why I couldn't use my German ones. But nowadays they're looking for the international certificate of competence, or they will also accept the Royal Yachting Association Day Sailor. The company itself needs a bit of a sailing resume from you, but in my experience, they're not too critical of what your sailing experience is. We came across people who were really windsurfers, they told me, and they'd taken a weekend course, and that allowed them to qualify to join the flotilla. But they had never seen an instrument panel in their lives before, or didn't know what to do with the circuit breakers. So after the lead skipper left, I actually gave them a tour of the boat so that they understand what the yacht's systems are actually all about. And I know that if you have questions about this, the Advantage Boating is with us tonight, and they'll be able to answer for you any questions you've got about that particular thing. So I'm going to just finish my presentation with this slide, which is a beautiful evening over Flotilla Bay. And I'll pass it back now to Park and Stephen, who will help with any questions. Like I say, a number of things have arrived in chat. And we'll see what happens there.
Thank you very much, Tony. I wonder whether or not we should start right off the bat with Ron Shute or Doris, whether either of them from Advantage Boating would like to comment on this last question that you raised, Tony.
Absolutely. I think Stephen's going to arrange for them to be unmuted.
Okay. There we go.
All right. Hi, Park.
Hi there.
Thanks, Tony. That was really great, great presentation.
Thank
Would
you.
you like to show your face?
I don't think they can. I think they can talk. I don't see a way to turn their video on.
I don't think
okay.
we can. Oh, just a second.
What I can do is I'll promote them to a panelist, and maybe they can.
Yep, I did that already.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh,
There you are. Hi.
How are you? Great
Fine,
presentation, Tony. It
Thank you.
was super interesting and made me want to be sailing right now and not in -30.
Yep.
So questions about just the ICC and certifications. So ICC is similar to what I would say your pleasure craft operator card for recreational boating is here in Canada, but to a higher degree of certification standard. It's to the equivalent to the intermediate bareboat standard from Sail Canada. So I think that along with your ICC certification, pretty much you can charter a boat anywhere in the world from most tier 1 companies that we've come across: Mooring, Sunsail, Dream Yacht, Navigar, just to name a few of the tier 1 companies. So I know that, Tony, you said you had your RYA day skipper. Each country has their own certification stream, and every...
I'll show you that. That's what I had, a Führerschein for Yachten, you see.
Okay.
And
So
a
every
sport
country...
Führerschein.
Yeah, nice.
So then they gave me one of these.
Right, right. So so if you have the equivalent to your intermediate cruising standard, which is the Sail Canada version, in US, it's US Sailing Bareboat Standard, RYA, it's your day skipper, I believe, right? That's one certification. And the ICC is something you can apply for if you have that level of competence. It does require an additional written exam, as well as showing your competence out on the water. And that's something that Advantage Boating can certainly do. And most charter companies, like you said, Tony, along with a sailing resume. I know that they're becoming a bit more strict in some places. I think there's just so many boaters now over in Europe, especially along the coastal waters in the Mediterranean and inland waters in Europe, that this is why the ICC came into effect. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's, I don't have much to add. As far as flotillas go, I mean, besides offering flotillas in the Caribbean during the winter months, our plan is to go to Greece, September, I think we got the dates already set, 9th to the 23rd, 2023, and then we're going to head back to Croatia again in September 7th to the 21st. So 2024. So yeah, both wonderful spots, and again, 2 weeks is to really see and get a good feel for the countries, and there's so much to see. You really do need 2 weeks to explore everything.
Okay, well,
So,
thank you very much.
I don't think it's
Is there
all bad.
anything else, Doris or Ron?
No, so if there's skippers out there that are interested in chartering and you're looking for certifications, have them reach out to us. We can definitely help walk you through the certification process and what you need and how to get it. Yeah, it's very popular now too over in Europe. And I concur with Tony, find a shoulder season to go. It's why we pick our flotillas in September. It is a zoo in the summertime over there, literally.
Yeah.
I giggled when you noted pre-Game of Thrones. Now with Game of Thrones, Dubrovnik has certainly, and a lot of the other places over there have become quite popular because they're filming locations. So September is a really nice time to go, and I've heard that spring is a nice time as well. Although the water, I think, in the spring is a bit cooler.
Yeah,
That's right.
So yeah, and very crystal clear water. Yeah, beautiful place to sail.
okay, well, thank you very much. We'll go ahead now with the questions and answers, I guess, if that's okay. Thanks again, Ron and Doris.
Good night.
Thank you.
First question, I guess I'm going to start off because I'm the MC. I can start my own question. I noticed the wind pattern leaving in the morning quite often. It's quite calm.
Yes.
And it seems to pick up later on. Is it roughly the same as what we expect here? Like it's calm till about 11 o'clock and then it starts to freshen by 11. It continues to freshen maybe all the way through till 7 o'clock at night or 7:30. And then it slowly dies down to calm again at 9 at night.
That's yeah, that seems to be fairly typical for that part of the Mediterranean. They called it the gentleman's wind when we were in Greece, because it meant that it generally died down in time for you to be able to sip your cocktails on deck without spilling them,
Very
and,
nice.
and allowed you to sleep in the morning without disturbing until you were ready to sail again in mid-morning.
I certainly think that's a good way of describing it. Thank you very much.
But it didn't always hold that way. And one of the things I appreciated in our first flotilla was we had a very diligent skipper, a UK skipper, who took it seriously in looking after the whole fleet. And he would be up early mornings listening to the weather forecasts. And one morning I could hear him clambering around on the decks around 3 in the morning, just tightening up a few lines because the wind had got up a bit overnight and he was making sure that the whole fleet was safe. And so we could just sort of stay asleep in our beds. It was kind of very comforting to know that somebody else was taking care of all of that.
It is, yes. You got a full good night's sleep.
Yep.
Oh. We have another question, I guess, along the same lines. It's what range of weather or wind conditions have you encountered on these sorts of flotillas? And have you ever had a part of the trip or a leg of the trip delayed or canceled because of weather?
I think there's one day, it was actually one of those days which was kind of an optional sail day, where we could have sailed from, I think we were in Gaia in the Ionian, beautiful little island called Gaia, and we had planned a trip over to the mainland and back again for the day. But as we came out of the harbor and got into the swells, but nobody on board felt particularly comfortable with that, and we thought we might have our first experience of seasickness. So we decided it would be a much nicer thing to do to turn around and go back into the harbor and lay over and just laze around on the island for the day. So that was the worst we have ever encountered.
Okay. Next question was, wasn't really clear to some of the people about whether these were self-organized groups for each boat, or whether or not you could put together groups on a boat.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I believe that all the flotillas I've participated in, it's always been a sort of a self-organized group. So some people who are friends got together, or it's a large family. I don't recall any of them being people who had booked and sort of got on sort of the yacht equivalent of Tinder to get together on a boat or something. So there was no matchmaking going on. But I know that there are flotillas that can be organized that way. It's just I don't think we've been on any like that.
Yeah, I guess there's concerns about that sort of thing if you have a mixed group arriving and some of the people have medical or allergy problems with separation of food, so on and so forth. But
yeah, it seems I always find it's nice to be with people that you know.
Right, to start with.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Can you go over the costs of the flotilla and the daily expenses? I guess that's all going to change because nobody's done anything for the last 2 years.
Yep. Yeah. So again, you'll find on Google, that's why I said there's a range of costs. Basically, the different costs that you're going to have is, the first thing is when you look at a flotilla and you want to book it, they will quote you a cost per boat. And what you need to look at there, that's the most common way. And they will show you, depending on the time of year you want to go, the size of boat you want, and how new you want your boat. They will actually, give you the price for a specific boat for a specific period of time. And then you can sort of adjust those parameters and find a boat that you say, well, I want a newer boat. I want it, in the middle of July. Well, then you're going to be paying the highest price. If you go in the lowest season, you'll find you're paying about half of that price for the same boat. But if you buy, if you get the equivalent boat and you're going with one that's say a 2020 boat, so fairly new in the fleet, and you look at a similar boat that was launched in 2012, you might find there's quite a discrepancy in price, because they're the newer boat is going to be a bit nicer to look at. It's going to sail the same pretty much,
Sure.
Although things might be a bit worn on the older boats. That's one of the things you're going to have to look out for.
Right. Okay.
So that's one element, is the boat. You've got the airfare to get there. So you're going to have to look at the airfare. Now, you can arrange through a company, some of the tier 1 companies will offer to give you the whole package. So they'll arrange the airfares for you as well. But we find that we can save by using points to get to the UK, because there's lots of opportunities to get to the UK on points. Getting to Dalaman Airport on points, not quite so easy. But if you get to the UK, you'll find that getting an EasyJet flight from the UK is incredibly cheap compared to what you'd pay for a similar distance here in North America. So you might find, say an Air Canada flight to the UK is going to cost you, I don't know, $600 per person if you're lucky, maybe $1,000. But maybe an EasyJet flight from Gatwick to Dalaman might cost you something like $100. So it really is worth getting to a European destination, and I think it's not just Gatwick, but if you fly into Germany, there's very cheap flights from Germany as well into a lot of these destinations. But we have family in the UK, so we know how to fly through the UK. What we would do is fly in there, stay overnight at a hotel in Gatwick, and get up early morning and arrive at on a morning flight in our destination. And then we've got time to adjust before we go to the boat in the afternoon. So there's that cost. There's the transfer cost from the airport to the boat, generally not too much. When you're there, the main costs you have are your meals, and your drinks. So it depends on what you want to spend on that, what kind of things you like to eat. Interesting enough, you'll find fish dishes cost more than meat dishes. I would have thought it was the opposite, but it's not.
Yeah.
Fish dishes tend to be quite expensive, and wine is quite expensive unless you're in Greece. Greece, it seems, you can get carafes of wine and beer and stuff. It's a bit cheaper than it is, say, in Croatia and Turkey. But so your food, the drinks, those kinds of things are going to be your expenses. And then, of course, there's docking fees whenever you dock at a city dock that's not included in your fees. And that can be, I think, when we docked in Korčula, it might have been $100 for the night,
Okay.
something like that. Many other places, though, if you're staying at a restaurant stock, no charge. But you're going to eat at the restaurant.
Sure. Well, you're going to eat someplace anyway.
Exactly.
So, is there a language issue in any of these places, or do they normally speak English and German? I guess maybe French.
We've never had a problem speaking English.
Okay.
But if they don't understand, you just speak a bit louder.
Always works, doesn't it? Tony.
Another thought, sir.
Yeah, somebody that sees you with that very nice, warm, relaxing background has been fooled into thinking that you're not in -30 like the rest of us. Are you going to tell them the secret, or are you going to let them continue to dream that that's where you are?
Oh, well, I think, if it's good enough for a former finance minister, it's good enough for me,
That's right. He is a former finance minister, though.
Yeah, that's one reason he's a former finance minister.
True.
Yeah.
Just for the interest of the person that asked the question,
yeah.
Last week we had a talk about life under the sea, and I had a background of being under the sea with the fishes around me, which wasn't exactly any more real than Tony's background.
Right.
So,
There it is.
what kind of physical condition should you expect to participate in the flotilla or on board? Like sometimes you see various tours set up for really strenuous, being able to ride, walk a mile or upstairs versus 100 yards out of the bus,
Okay.
so on and so forth.
Well, I mean, you need to be able to handle a sailboat, and and if you're comfortable handling a sailboat on the Ottawa River, you're probably going to do well there. But you will not find that there's facilities for people who need assistance walking. So you're going to need to walk a bit. But generally, the amount of physical activity you do is up to you, as long as you can get on and off the boat.
In actual fact, I think you've described far more services as you come into dock than what I've ever imagined, either in the States or certainly at NSC, where you're pretty much on your own.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always very comforting to know as long as you can operate a VHF radio. And I think in Croatia, they actually require you to have a VHF radio license, although I don't know how they check that. I do actually still have one. But, if you can operate a radio and, communicate with the people on shore, they'll be assisting you.
I see. Very good.
In fact, it's quite important to do that. I will mention one incident where the lead skipper and the host managed to rescue a family that were getting themselves into quite some potentially serious trouble. We were coming in, we were told we were going to be coming into a harbor on the Greek coast that had a very narrow entrance, just a little bit, maybe 2 boats width between 2 concrete walls. So you had to fit the boat right through the center of this gap in the harbor wall. And that actually happened to be sideways to the prevailing waves coming in. So there was a good sort of 15 to 20 knots blowing. and you had to come in sideways through this gap in the harbour wall at some speed in order to not sort of get knocked sideways and into the wall, but then immediately slam on the brakes once you got inside the harbour, because it wasn't a very big harbour. And once you got in, then they helped you tie up. And once we were tied up against the harbour wall, there was a bit of surf coming up over the harbour walls and onto the boats. So we actually went bows to at that particular place because we like to face into the wind. But there was a family coming in, a German family, who had been using a spinnaker earlier in the day, taking it down, and were coming in under sail. We were warned not to stray too far away from the harbour entrance, because away from it was a sandbank that you didn't want anybody getting stuck on. So as they came in, they were sort of coming back and forth, but they were having difficulty furling up their foresail. They'd got the mainsail in, but the foresail was still out. It turned out they got the spinnaker halyard wrapped inside the sail, and they couldn't free it. Yeah. So the skipper's trying to give instructions through the VHF radio. But what had happened was the father of the family had gone forward to try and solve the problem, and he'd left his teenage daughter at the helm steering the boat, and nobody was listening to the radio. So every time she turned around and tacked, the boat drifted a little bit further down towards this sandbank. And you could see, they were really struggling, and they'd tack around again and get a bit closer to this sandbank. Eventually, they decided there's only one thing for it. They had to go out and help them. So they jumped into a dinghy with fortunately, a very good, powerful outboard motor, and steamed up alongside the boat, timed the rise of a wave to leap off the dinghy and up over the side of the boat onto it, where he, with amazing strength, managed to snap the spinnaker halyard and save the day. And again, I think that's where another good example is why I really like being in a flotilla, because you get a skipper like that he was obviously so skilled at what he did. He knew exactly what to do, and he had the strength to do it. So right. Never seen anything quite like that rescue. But
is it worthwhile taking a handheld VHF with you?
I think anything like that is useful.
Okay. Tony, I didn't hear what year you went to Turkey. Given the political situation right now, I mean, things are sort of changing all over, but they're changing as well in Turkey.
Yeah, I think it was about 10 years ago.
So perhaps it's...
So again, I say our experience, it wouldn't be quite the same experience today.
Right.
We happened to go at a really good time.
Right. Okay. So maybe not so nice now.
But it was interesting. I mean, when we drove up to Istanbul, we actually got on a little car ferry that took us the last distance into Istanbul. Mm-hmm. One of the things I was a bit surprised at was how, before we got on the car ferry, we were all kind of stopped by security people who inspected the underside of the car with mirrors. Mm. I wonder what they were looking for, but I think a few months later I heard that somebody had detonated a car bomb on board one of those ferries.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So they were keeping you safe.
They were keeping us safe.
So, let's see. What are the size of the boats? Like the smallest to the largest, I guess. Okay.
Well, the smallest boat that we've been on a flotilla with was a 28-footer. That was our first foray in Greece, and we've kind of the sweet spot for us for a family is around a 33 to 35. Okay. But if you are a larger group and you can handle a bigger boat, a 40, 41 foot is generally very comfortably appointed, and those boats usually have nice large water tanks and a nice hot water shower on board. Because if you don't have a shower on board, you're going to be using a sun shower. It's one of those little bladders that warms up in the sun, and you're going to be using that for showering. Although some of the places that you go to, some of the restaurants you go to, they will actually have a shower in there, or a hotel that they've arranged that for us to be able to go and use a room with a shower. But there's a queue for that. So it's
Okay.
nice to have a shower on board if you can get it.
Once you end up going to 38 to 40, 42 feet, you probably want, it sounds sexist, but at least 2 couples on board because of the strength required to handle some of the docking procedures and sails and so on.
So
rather than
mostly
just-
the sails. If you've got a 40-footer, you've probably got a windlass.
Mhm.
And again, with docking, if you're in a flotilla, they're going to be helping you with that anyway. But it's just handling the sails. You know, that would be the thing.
Yeah. So if you have a family, you want to have older kids in the family for a boat that large, with maybe some strong sons and daughters.
Well, it's useful to have at least one willing participant.
Yes. So, and the approximate cost of a flotilla boat. So you've already mentioned that newer is more expensive, older is less. So the problem, I guess, with everything is that everybody in the world has taken a 2-year hiatus.
Yep.
And so prices have gone up in Canada on virtually anything you can mention.
Mhm.
And so for you to try and quote what prices.
As
might
I say,
be-
I mean, I recommend just checking Google and you know, put in sun sail, they'll tell you flotillas, and go and take a look. And you'll see
Right.
there's quite a range, and it could be anywhere from, say, I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000 for a week, or up to 8,000, depending on what kind of boat you want and when you
Yeah,
want to.
when you're going and so on.
Yeah.
So where. Okay. I guess we're all ready to close it off, and unless any last minute questions.
Now, I do apologize for the music that was louder than I intended it to be.
Well, it's one of the things that we went through during the dry run.
Yeah, and I thought I'd fixed it, but I'm obviously not well enough. So
Well, maybe it's our
apologies.
fault. We didn't tell you to turn it down even further. We did turn it down a little bit, but a little bit further might have been better still.
Exactly.
Okay, there's no further questions, Tony. So thank you very much for your presentation this evening.
Welcome.
We have a weekly presentation. I won't say it's the same hat, but it perhaps is in the springtime when things open up again. We'll be presenting you with token of gratitude for the presentation you've made. And so we certainly appreciate that. So,
Thank you very much.
okay then. And last, I guess, before we sign off, we're going to talk about next week's presentation again. So there's going to be short presentations on the race activities planned for this coming summer, and then quick reviews of the One Design fleets, including dinghies and keelboats. And then there's going to be some presentation on planned training sessions for volunteers in various key race management roles. So any case, see you all next week. Thank you very much. Stay safe and stay well. Good night.